This is Veronica from Retra, and you're listening to Rock at Night.
Are you ready? Hey, tonight I'm gonna take you on a little trip. We're going down south by the mighty Mississippi. I'm gonna take you to a place where lights never dim. Bring your mother, your brother, and your best friend. I'm gonna show you where they dance out in the street. They'll tell you all about your body heat. I'm not gonna talk about it, just gonna do it. Get on down if you feel up good. Now, get on down.
This is Charisse with Rock at Night magazine, and today we are speaking with Veronica Witkin of Retra, formerly known as the Glam Skanks. Let's talk about Retra, because obviously this is a big change of a little bit of change of lineup. I see Millie's with you guys too. Why the change, and how did this come about?
Yeah, so it was sort of something that when we've been thinking about it for a while, actually, ever since Allie, our first singer, had quit. We were sort of like, do we do a little bit of a change? You know, do we mix it up a little bit? But we just got thrown into so many, tours and things under Glam Skanks that we were just kind of like, oh, well, maybe, we'll see where it goes. Maybe we'll get to that if there's still too much confusion and things like that. And then when we kind of did a little bit more of a lineup change at the beginning of the year, right before the pandemic, we kind of thought, okay, if we're going to do another lineup change, now would be the time to maybe consider a name change. And again, we were kind of thinking about it. And then when the pandemic hit and everything we had planned just kind of went out the window, we had no commitments as Glam Skanks anymore. We really sat and were like, all right, we have new members. We're doing, so sonically, not something super different, but different enough that we felt like Glam Skanks was a little bit, it boxed us in a little bit too much, even though we still do the glam thing. We're, a little more mature than Skanks now. And musically, we think we have more to offer than, just one kind of genre or whatever. So we kind of felt that during the pandemic was a perfect time to sit back and look at what we had and what we wanted to keep and what we wanted to change and sort of how we wanted to do it.
Mm-hmm. So I guess it just kind of petered out, ran its course, and now it's a new beginning. And I love Queen of the Avant-Garde.
Oh, thank you.
The video is fantastic. It's real punchy, in your face, stroby, colorful. It really fits glam.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure that when we did this change that we still wanted to let, the old fans know that what they loved about us wasn't going anywhere. We were just going to take what people loved and sort of merge it with all these other different weird ideas that we've sort of had over the years.
So you guys wrote all the new stuff during the pandemic together? You did?
Yeah, pretty much. It was sort of, usually when we're touring, we kind of try to write songs in between tours. And as soon as everything got canceled, we were just like, all right, let's start writing. Let's try to get in the studio. So we've just been, Queen of the Avant-Garde was like one of the first ones we all wrote together. So that was kind of the first one we were like, this is the perfect sort of re-debut for us, since it was one of the first ones that all kind of came together with everybody's involvement and really sort of spoke about how we feel as a band. So we thought that was like the perfect sort of reintroduction for us.
You have another song, Stardust Starla. It's kind of 50s sounding, kind of retro. I heard pieces of it.
It's sort of like when Mark Bolan tried to write a 50s song. That was sort of our mentality going into that one, was like T-Rex doing the, kind of Chuck Berry thing.
Yeah. Well, even when you think about punk like the Ramones, that's 50s, just faster.
Oh, yeah.
As far as that goes. So you obviously listen to a lot of 70s glam. Do you like 80s too? Like big hair band stuff? And
the hair band stuff isn't as much our vibe, but what 80s we go a little more punk and new wave and sort of that direction. For me, at least personally, growing up in LA on the Sunset Strip, it was just so much of the 80s hair metal thing that I just kind of kind of got over it very quickly just because it was every band, everybody was dressed that way. So I went through like my phase as a kid, but then I sort of was like, yeah, what else is there?
Let's talk a little bit about glam while we're at it too. What is glam to you, and why do you have this kind of affinity towards it? It seems to be really your thing.
For me, glam was always more of like an attitude and an energy than just, you know, a genre, sort of in the way that punk is, that you can't really, you know, say that it's a genre. To me, it was just obviously the visuals of glam rock just always appealed to me. I mean, you can't look at David Bowie and just not be amazed, you know, and guys like Mark Bolan and Brian Ferry, you just look at them and they just look so good. But it just, I think it was, you know, it's a form of rock that embraced its more feminine side. And I think for us girls, there was something very appealing about, you know, artists with makeup and fashion. And because, you know, a lot of the dude sort of rock bands that we love, like Zeppelin or, you know, any of those bands weren't really very effeminate when it came to the makeup and the hair and the fashion. So I think there's something about that, and, you know, about just the LGBTQ, you know, thing about, you know, the glam scene. It was just always a little bit more open than the, you know, hetero all boys group of just regular rock music. So there was even that side of it as well, was always very appealing to all of us.
One thing that since I've been researching all this glam rock stuff, it seems you can't divide fashion from it. It seems to be like the whole package. What do you think?
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't really think that I've heard of too many glam artists that don't have some sort of image, even if it's not the stereotypical glam, you know, image, even if it was like a band like Kiss with their, you know, face paint and crazy boots and stuff. Like, there's definitely that, you know, it's a whole package. And I think that's also something that's always appealed to us, that, you know, it's like, there are great artists who obviously are just great without the makeup and without all the, you know, all the stuff, but there's something to be said about when, you know, somebody can just sound great, look great, put on a cool show. Every picture you see of them is just, you know, fabulous and cool looking, that it entices people more, I think.
When I think about the evolution of glam rock, I mean, late 60s, it was all kind of hippie, dull blue jeans, the Eagles, and then all of a sudden pops up Bowie and Elton John even. It was theatrics and color. And you know what? I think after the pandemic, we need some color.
Oh, agreed.
You know?
Agreed.
Is glam rock dead, though? Can you think of some bands besides you guys that are really true glam rock people?
I definitely see, I mean, that band, The Struts, they're probably the closest that I've seen in the mainstream that's doing, you know, a good combination of like the 70s glam thing and the 80s glam thing. They've kind of got their, like, you know, Freddie Mercury, if he was singing for like Def Leppard sort of vibe, which they're definitely keeping that image and that scene alive. I know that there's some, you know, we've played with some smaller bands that we fit well with because they kind of have the glam image or vibe. But I definitely think just now with, you know, in sort of the world of social media, that you do have to have that look and that image more than I think you had to, you know, 40, 50 years ago. Everybody's, you know, scrolling through, clicking, you got to make sure that it's bright, it's colorful, it catches people's attention. So I think even if sonically a lot of bands aren't doing the glam thing, I noticed, you know, pop stars are always very glam. There's just that, you want to see that color, that extravagance, that sort of visual thing that pulls you in.
I think when people go to a concert, they expect to be entertained and they expect theatrics and they love it. You know, when they see color and bands kicking, like when you play the guitar a lot, you're always kicking and jumping around and stuff like that. That makes it fun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Why just go to a show to just see, you know, I mean, obviously there's the people who can just sit there and they're phenomenal and it doesn't, but especially when you're at our level and you're trying to, like, you know, get to a new fan base and get people's attention when you're an opener or whatever, like, I think it's important to have that extra oomph that really gets people's attention, especially like for us opening up for Adam, we have people who are all the way in the back who we want to make sure that they can see us, whether they're right in the front or all the way up in the back, that, you know, we want everybody to get the same show no matter where they're sitting.
That's a good point visually. That's why the color has to pop. That's a good point, because I think even in Broadway shows, they make Cats or something, they have to make sure the makeup is vibrant so people can see it all over, right?
Yeah, we're very specific with like what colors we wear on stage to make sure that people can see our makeup under the lights and from far away, and you know, they can see our outfits and all that fun stuff, because it really brings you in more than you're just, oh, I think I see some like dots running around down there.
Now with Retra, you have a male member now. How is it working with a guy?
It's been fun. You know, I mean, we had a guy drummer as Glam Skinks like a long time ago. We've sort of worked well with guys and girls, or, you know, people who identify, you know, as either or neither. But it's definitely just been a little, you know, guys have a little bit of a different confidence than I think girls do sometimes. So like, you know, he comes in with this vibe of like, oh yeah, I can play what, you know, whatever you guys need me to, which is great, because there's sometimes been, you know, girls who come in and they're a little more timid, and even though they can totally do it, they don't feel like they can. So there's something a little nice, especially when it comes to drums, to have somebody who's got that confidence of like, oh yeah, I can, you know, I can play this drum fill, I can do this thing. And it's just kind of, it breaks it up a little bit. It's kind of nice, not, you know, I'm sure especially for when we start touring for the other, you know, our road crew who's mostly male, it'll be nice to kind of have a little bit more of a dynamic there than just like a bunch of chicks and our tour manager.
Well, let's talk about life on the road and everything. You know, there's all this, how should you say, this idea in people's head that it's glamorous and, you know, it's all fun and games. What is your opinion of life on the road, and what are some funny stories that pop up into your head when you think about life on the road?
Well, yeah, it is funny. People, I mean, I feel like people either think it's the most glamorous thing in the world, or they think that it is like just, oh, it must be miserable. And it's kind of, you get your good days and your bad days. It's not necessarily glamorous by any means, but you kind of, you know, you feel good about yourself when you're on the road. So even if you're like sleeping on somebody's floor, eating like canned food, there's still something that just feels like I'm out here, I'm doing it, I'm living the dream, even if I am, you know, eating like canned spaghetti or whatever, you know. It's like, but I do think sometimes people have the misconception that like a band at our level is probably, you know, staying in nice hotels and touring in a bus, and we're, you know, we try to stay where we can for free when it's possible, because it helps us. We pay for everything we do on the road, so whatever we don't have to pay for, it just kind of helps the ride. But when we do, we kind of, you know, find whatever cheap motels we can find, and we'll do our research to find something that is really nice for really cheap when we can. We have some dietary issues, you know, vegans and things like that, so we got to be a little careful what we eat. So we're luckier than some bands as far as what we go to eat. But it's definitely, I mean, I would choose that over being stuck in my house now for the last year and a half.
Yes.
Any day at this point. I mean, it's one of those weird balances that when you're on the road for too long, you're like, oh, I can't wait to get home. But as soon as you're home, I'm like, I can't wait to get back out there again. So I feel like now we're just going to probably go for like 3 months and not even have that feeling of like, oh, I wish I was home, because I think we've.
I guess gas station food starts to look good now.
Yeah, at this point, we're like, we would take, you know, eating at Taco Bell every day to get out there and see people and, you know, be back in it again.
Traveling overseas, what's that like? I know you guys went all over the UK, and you traveled Europe too, correct?
Yeah, we've done UK and Europe a few times now. I mean, we love touring anyway, but there's definitely something special about going over, you know, to another country and exploring and just meeting people that are, you know, culturally completely different than you, hearing different languages, eating different foods. I mean, we love it. I have like a severe phobia of flying, so it's always a little dramatic, but as much as I hate flying, I love doing it too much. So we always, it's just so stressful making sure we have everything. It's kind of a, going through the airport with all of our gear and trying to, figure all that out. But oh my God, it's just, especially like the best thing about touring Europe that we love is they really support the arts and live music there. So we are always put up at somebody's house, and it's always just the coolest people, and they'll, invite all their friends over, and we'll get to like meet all these people and party, and they feed you. So you'll like go out to dinner with everybody who works at the club that you're playing. And there's this real like camaraderie with everybody. Cause it just, every night we'd be in a different town. We'd be eating dinner with, the crew and the people who run the venues and their friends and family. And it's just, this sort of thing that you can't really get anywhere else.
It's because you guys are Americans that, they just like Americans a lot?
Part of it, I mean, apparently their governments just sort of help fund the arts there. So any touring musicians get, fed and put up somewhere just because, they understand what it costs to usually tour. But there's definitely this thing. There's this one story. We were in this, I can't remember the exact name of the town, but we were somewhere in Portugal in a really, really small town. And apparently we were the first American band to ever come through their town.
Wow.
So the whole town came to dinner with us afterwards. There must have been like 50 people crammed into this little restaurant at dinner with us. Like the whole, every young person in this little town was there. The venue, they had people climbing up. We were playing upstairs. They had people climbing up because they couldn't get in through the front because it was just like, oh my God, an American band is here.
Holy cow, that's like going to third world or something where they've never seen outsiders.
Yeah, they've had, other European bands come through and things like that, but they never had a band from America, and especially a band from Los Angeles. So it was like this huge deal that we were in this tiny town.
Holy cow, you're treated like we're the red carpet.
Oh yeah, the guy we were staying with, his cousin owned a restaurant. They're like, my cousin's restaurant, whatever you guys want, order anything off the menu. It was just like...
That's a far cry from the United States, the way people are treated or whatever, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, very different.
Yeah, wow. Have you been to like Eastern Europe at all? Any countries over there?
No, we've done France and Spain a lot of times. We've done Germany and Belgium a couple times, but we haven't really, and then Amsterdam. But other than that, we haven't really ventured out too far. We'd like to do more Eastern Europe and Scandinavia. Like we really want to actually sort of branch out and see as much of Europe as we can.
Well, when the pandemic is over, does Retra have any plans to do any touring and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, we're starting to put our feelers out now because we know that once things are a go, it's just going to be, I mean, usually for tours, you have to book them a good 6 months in advance. So we're kind of starting to put things out for like end of this year, beginning of next year. If things go smoother, maybe hopefully like we're looking to maybe tour a little more locally, do the US in like October. We're kind of maybe shooting forward, doing like a California tour maybe in July. So we're kind of, but international, that'll probably be next year, most likely.
You have a couple singles. Is there an EP on the horizon or a full album?
We're looking to probably do a full length album. We're just kind of, we've got about half of the songs recorded. We're going in to do a few more. We're sort of waiting to see what the touring thing is like, because we'd like to sort of put out a record when we're touring. So we might just keep doing like singles or an EP in between then. And then once we know we're good to tour, release the full album.
Is there anything that you would want people to know about Retra, about your philosophy, or what could they expect at a Retra show?
Ooh, well, definitely what you can expect at a Retra show is going to be a good time, loud music. Just, I'm sure, especially after this pandemic, we'll be really getting in people's faces, jumping into the crowd when it's safe. You can definitely expect a very intimate and physical show, no matter how big or small it is. And it's weird. Our philosophy. It's funny because when we came up with the name Retra, we were sort of playing around with the word retro with a feminine sort of perspective, and when we were looking it up to make sure that there weren't really any other bands with the name or whatever, all that kind of announcement research. Millie, I think it was Millie, came across an Urban Dictionary definition of the word retra.
Whoa.
And it fit us perfectly. Actually, let me see if I can
find it. Because to me, retra is the feminine form of retro, in a sense, if you were to look at Latin,
Yeah. And that's kind of where it started.
Mm-hmm.
But then we saw this Urban Dictionary, and basically they were just saying that it's pertaining to the movement which encompasses many humanitarian philanthropic, metaphysical and socio-spiritual political philosophies and practices which aim to enlighten the individual's perception to alternative perceptions and views in order to instill an instinctive moral code stemming only from positive notions relating to fellow life forces.
Holy cow.
And underneath it said, Retra is the future, and Retra is not a religion. It is a way of life. You can choose to believe what you like, but I'd rather believe in something that is going to create and spread positivity. My belief is not in a religion, but in Retra. And we saw that, and we were like, wow, that actually kind of fits.
You're going to have a cult. That's what it sounds like. A freaking cult. I have a picture of Tommy, the movie Tommy, one of my favorite films. See me, feel me, touch me. Yeah. Oh, well, that probably does go along your philosophy too. Feminist for sure, right? Philanthropic, lover of animals.
Yeah, we are trying to spread something positive, especially with all the sort of negativity going on with the virus and with, just politically things and yada, yada, it's like.
Last year was a dark year.
Yeah.
And that's why I like to see brightness. To me, the 80s, the 70s were kind of dark blue jeans, just kind of like, eh. And when the 80s came, it was all bright colors and flash. And I hope that happens now.
I definitely think we need some color.
Yeah.
Years and
optimism. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, the best and worst thing about the pandemic was that everybody sort of, everybody had it differently, but we all sort of were in the same sort of, headspace, all of us, and in that same, like, all feeling sort of that same darkness, which is horrible, but somewhat unifying at the same time. So I think that now it's time to bring everybody out of that collectively, just how we were all collectively in it for so long, that now it's, and that is what music is for, is bringing people together.
Exactly.
And I can't wait to see what concerts are going to look like when things are fully, no capacity restrictions. Everybody can get all sweaty and gross with each other again. It's going to be, I hope that people kind of love each other a little bit more than we were a few years ago now, after not being able to hug each other and dance with each other and sing with each other, that people kind of learn how to do that again.
I think one thing we've learned is we humans need each other too. Mm-hmm. I mean, if it wasn't for social media, we've all been isolated, keeping in touch, the human contact, and now even Zooming, people really need each other. That's one thing I found.
Yeah, and as great as it is that we've had social media to keep us together, it has definitely shown that it is not like a real substitute for the real thing. It's a great when we need it. I can't imagine going through this last year and a half without some form of social media, but now it really shows that when we can get back to the real world with each other, that maybe then we need to like put all that shit down.
Yeah.
and be there with each other. Not everybody needs to be at a concert like this. You had
Yes, thank you.
for the last year that you can save on your computer or rewatch. Like, be there, be in the moment now, because we don't know when we're going to have to like go back into hiding like this again.
That's an excellent point. And, there's nothing like a live concert. Are you guys planning to do any live streams, Retra, to show people, so people could kind of watch you kind of being like a live band? Any plans?
Yeah, we did one about a month and a half ago for Vox Amplification. We did something through their Instagram, and that was kind of the first little thing we did. And it's interesting. I mean, we want to do a few more, but it definitely doesn't have that same feel. We're kind of figuring out how to set up our own studio to do live streams, so we can kind of do it whenever we want. But we just kept sort of holding out of like, maybe we'll just wait and hope that shows come back instead and not have to really do this. But the more it goes on, the more we're like, maybe we should kind of figure that out.
There's my cat. Speaking of pandemic, we had a lot of time off. Is there anything that you had time to do that you never did before, like a new hobby or just out of curiosity, something new?
I've always been interested in making clothes. I kind of alter my own stage clothes. So at the beginning of the pandemic, I was just making outfits for myself.
So you do sewing and everything?
Yeah, I do a little. I kind of repurpose things. I can't really make much from scratch, but I'll go to thrift stores, buy stuff, and kind of tear them apart and put them back together. And I've always done that a little bit, but over the pandemic, I got myself like a sewing bust and all that kind of stuff, and got really into it. And then I hit a peak where I was like, I can't wear these clothes anymore anywhere right now. Maybe I'll take a break. So now I kind of have all these new outfits that I can't wait to wear in, videos and at shows and stuff.
All dressed up and no place to go.
Yeah.
So you make a lot of your own costumes then? Do you alter your clothing to wear on stage?
A lot of it, yeah. I'll usually I have a lot of suits that I'll kind of, put stuff on them, sort of like a nudie suit vibe. I kind of do that sort of stuff, or kind of, like put sequins on something. I'll sequin like the collar of a jacket or things like that. Nothing super extreme, but I kind of just, throw something on the back of a jacket or kind of that sort of stuff.
So you have to glitterify your clothing to make it glam, which goes back to the glam topic. What you do your own makeup and everything? And
yeah, usually my aunt is a makeup artist, so when we have big things like a music video shoot or a big photo shoot, I'll have her do my makeup. But for live, we all do our own stuff. Millie is an incredible makeup artist, so she'll help any of us in the band who need it when we need something more professional. Audra, her partner, is a great makeup artist too, so they do her makeup. So we all sort of either do each other's or have friends or family help us.
Yeah, Audra's the new singer. Can you tell me a little bit about her background? Because I don't know anything about her.
Yeah, it's funny. We met her maybe a month before the pandemic. We got really lucky. It was actually also a funny story how we met her when we knew we kind of had to start looking around for singers. A friend of Millie's was like, oh, I know this girl. She's a great singer. She works over at this bar. I'll introduce you. And we have so many friends tell us that somebody would be great for the band, and they're just not, whether it's been drummers in the past or singers or whatever. And friends mean well, but they don't always know. So Millie was sort of like, all right, yeah, we'll see. They go to the bar that she was working at, and it was a karaoke bar. And they walk in, and Audra's singing karaoke, and Millie just was like, lost it. I wake up in the morning to all these videos of Audra singing, and oh my God, check this girl out. Look at her social media. Mm-hmm. And I checked out, her stuff, and in a weird sort of meant to be coincidence, she had covered Moon Age Daydream by David Bowie and Sweet Transvestite from the Rocky Horror Show. And we had covered both of those songs. And we were just like, what are the odds that somebody our age would cover these two songs? Because, we get a lot of people who sort of bullshit us and will say that they like, these sort of bands and they don't really know who they are. And doing all of our research, we're like, oh my God, she actually, her favorite band is the New York Dolls. She's from the East Coast. And that's
Thunders.
Bonded on, because it was like, who our age in Los Angeles knows the New York Dolls anymore? And I saw a picture of her wearing, a T-Rex t-shirt. And it was just like, before we even auditioned her, me and Millie were like, what? We feel like she's going to be the one. Like, that just seemed like, and when we got together with her and we actually heard her voice and really like talked to her on, and got to meet her and got to know her. And we just like, we knew we had other people we had to audition that we were obligated to because we already scheduled it, but we were like, oh no. It's her. We know it's her. Like, we automatically, it was sort of like me, Millie, and Audra all became soulmates like right away after meeting her.
That's excellent. It was meant to be serendipity, meant to be. Was she in a band before, or that she just was singing for fun at the karaoke?
She's been doing stuff like as a solo artist for years. So she's been in projects with people, but she's been doing, she does her own solo music, and she's actually a drag king.
Oh, wow. So interesting.
Yeah. So she already had built up like her own fan base too, which was great, doing between her own solo music and her drag king performances. So she already kind of knew how to really like work a stage and work an audience from all of her years. Especially, she's from Washington DC, but she moved to New York when she was younger, so she sort of had that experience there playing in the local music scene in New York. So we've kind of come from those two separate LA, New York kind of.
I have to say, watching her in the video, the Queen of Avant-Garde, she's got a real charisma, real stage presence. So, I think it's going to work out well. And it's so funny that you guys all were into the same type of music, the 70s, for real, not a fake glam, but really, really.
Yeah, everybody can say they love David Bowie because everybody knows who David Bowie is. And you'll be like, oh, T-Rex, and they'll have no idea who you're talking about.
They just know Bang a Gong, that's it.
Yeah, you reference Roxy music and they don't know who you're talking about. Yeah. When somebody actually knows.
Not the Hoople, they don't know who that is. Yeah,
when somebody can spout off like, oh, Brian Eno, you're like, oh, they actually know that. Oh my God. They're not just into the like radio hits and the, because there's those people who will like, oh, I know that stuff. And then you'll be like, oh yeah, all the young dudes. And they're like, I don't know that song. And you're like, you know that song. Everybody knows that song. You just
movies.
don't know who does the song because you just.
Yeah. Bowie wrote it for them.
Yeah. And it's like, that song. Like people be like, I don't know who T-Rex is. It's like, you do. You just.
Wow. Do they know who Sweet is?
I would hope, but again, I mean, how it's all obscure shit to people my age nowadays. They don't really know all that stuff unless it's like the big song.
I talk to a lot of young people. They just like hip hop, and I just don't get that.
I mean, there's some I dig, but like, for the most part, it's like if music doesn't really have a guitar in it, I don't really.
Tell me, that's how I feel too. Playing an instrument is a craft. Sampling someone's instrument is cut and pasting,
Yeah, I have my opinions on all of that.
Yeah, me too.
Art to what some people can do with a computer and things like that. But, I'll notice that like other musician friends of mine who are drummers or bass players or, whatever, they can listen to electronic music and hear something in it still. Oh, the beats, the bass. And I'm like, there's nothing I can relate to in this. There's no instrument I play there. It doesn't relate to what I do as a musician. I don't really get it. Like, I know so many, like I get like some electronic music, but I noticed that it's definitely the ones who don't play guitar who are a little more into it because there's still bass and beats and all those things. But guitar players are usually like,
I really enjoy your playing too. You're really good. And I really respect you guys. And I'm going to continue to follow you as Retra now, as I did for Glam Skinks. And I really hope that the pandemic, goes away soon. And I want to see you guys come to Florida.
Oh, we would love to. We have to get back out. We miss people. We miss crowds. We'll play to anybody, anywhere at this point.
Oh, we miss you guys too. I appreciate you so much for talking to me, and want to get the word out that Retra is out there and in your face and going to take over the world. So I thank you so much for speaking to me, V, and I love you guys, and I want to see you on the road soon.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This was a good case after a year of hiding away. So
yay, Retro. All right. And look forward to more good glammy music from you guys.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks. And
all right. Thank you so much. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You're listening to Rock at Night.
The introductory song, Get On Down, is from blues artist Billy Bass Alford. Look for his music at ReverbNation.com.